Today, Black Lives Matter says if the country doesn't give them what they want, they will burn the system down. President Trump gets a win from the Supreme Court, and Texas counties issue mask mandates once again, because I guess COVID is like a thing again. We've got a lot to get into, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by the one and only Eric July, BlazeTV contributor. Thanks for being here.
Of course, of course.
And we've got Yaku Buyans in the house as well, host of the Yaku Buyans show.
Good to be here.
Yes, thanks for being
Eric.
here. Yeah.
Man,
I'm
moving on up.
I didn't realize it was your first time
with him,
with
yeah,
Eric.
Come on.
He's watched your work. He's kind of a big fan.
Yeah, look at that beard. All it just works. It just works.
Don't be surprised if he asks for your autograph before the end.
On the top.
Got you.
All right. So Black Lives Matter, a leader with Black Lives Matter, went on Fox News yesterday evening. And I mean, you got to give it to him for at least just saying the quiet parts out loud now. He said that if the group is not given what they want, they will burn down the system. Here is a little bit of that interview.
Burn it down. It's time. So that makes me think that you want to burn it down.
I said if this country doesn't give us what we want, then we will burn down this system and replace it. All right, and I could be speaking figuratively. Okay. I could be speaking literally. It's a matter of interpretation.
I mean, I feel like if you're asked,
you're the one that said it,
right?
So,
if you're asked a direct question to interpret it, you should probably just say what it means.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. Bill, it's like he wanted to say it, but he just wanted to say just enough. Mm-hmm. So if he had to reel it back, so it wasn't like an actual threat or anything, he gave himself leeway. So that was actually a little bit smart.
Plausible deniability.
Yeah, exactly. Nonetheless, I do like that we're starting to see a lot of these guys in terms of these activists being open, coming to the forefront with what it is that they actually want. Yeah. And now you see, and this is why you talk about libertarians and Trump not kissing up to groups like this, because they don't want what we want, and they have their own sort of vision that is my way or the highway. Mm-hmm. And this is what's so dangerous about things like this. And I say, like, just properly even identifying an issue. I'm a libertarian. Talk about this police brutality thing way more often than what they do, right? However, I think the solutions are more important because just because you identify a proper issue does not mean that we're going to get closer to freedom on the other side of this. Right. And that's what's so important. So I do believe that what we saw with some of the reactions, though, it wasn't like actual, like maybe guys that were just strictly Black Lives Matter, that were doing some of the looting and rioting and stuff out of sort of reaction, which didn't seem to make any sense. But you did see the justifications that were happening by way of all of the blue check marks, corporate media figureheads, and so forth, saying, well, they're just lashing out. This is, you guys weren't listening before, and this is their way of doing it. It's complete nonsense, but you're seeing a glimpse of what it is that they're willing to do, and more importantly, what they're willing to justify in the event that you don't give them what it is that they want. Now, what is that? It really depends on who you ask as far as what it is they want. We already know now that the whole defund the police thing was a big fraud. It was basically a front for money laundering to these other useless things. It was not an actual defunding of the police in terms of, let's say, getting rid of it and letting people keep their money. That was never the case. So it depends on what they want. If you've been listening to these guys, generally what they want is some sort of using the state to basically do whatever it is they personally want to do in terms of advancing people's lives, which I'd actually argue that none of what they advocate for the most part is conducive to even getting to that point. But that's what it is that they want. And you're seeing that they're not trying to negotiate as far as what it is that they think they're right. They think they have the moral high ground. So, yes, if you don't give us what it is that we want, figuratively or literally, they may burn it down. Who knows? Who knows? But I think it's something to certainly pay attention to going forward. And I think I'm actually happy that a lot of them are coming out with just saying what it is they believe in. Like the one Black Lives Matter, the actual organization, one of the founders saying that they were trained Marxists.
Yes.
just come out and let us know so we can get that on the table and then we can have an open discussion.
Yeah, that is the positive, Yaku, that they're being emboldened enough that they can come out and really, really say how they truly feel, what they truly think.
You know, Sarah and Eric, sometimes you need to hear yourself say something to hear how ridiculous it is.
Yeah.
Because inside it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
But then when the lights are on and you're on national television and you say something and you hear yourself, I watched his eyes there, him catching himself and going, I can play this here for a second. And so now it's fair game. I always say, tell me who you are if you're my opponent. Show yourself. Put your team on the field. Declare yourself. Declare, I am now running against you. Let's go. This is why it was important for Trump to say, Biden, will you do an extra 3 to show? No, he doesn't want to. Now finally the opponent has a face. And now finally the opponent is saying, well, this is what we don't quite know what we want yet, right?
Right.
And then now they're going to realize they haven't thought this through, because when you say, let's say literally, we're going to burn the system down. Do you know what the system is? And have you run that through your mind, what that really looks like? Let's go to the extreme. What is it that you want? Civil war? Because you lose dismally there. Your group's not large enough. You physically just do not have the resources, the manpower. So empty threats. But I think you saw him there catch himself, and I hope we see more of that. Come out, speak. Hopefully people like Hannity and these guys and other networks would have them on. Because when they hear themselves, their followers would also then start saying, it's almost like saying, we got the greatest quarterback in the world, and then let's go play. And he throws 4 interceptions, you go, I thought we were good.
Right.
That's gonna. I hope that happens now.
Yeah,
right? That they come out.
Yeah, it is interesting though. You know, you hear the way that they're speaking, and it's just like you sound like a bunch of entitled children.
That's right.
Absolutely.
If you don't give us what we want, we're going to throw a tantrum. Is essentially what it is.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like they act as if their positions are just right. Automatically, like they have.
You don't get to question.
Right,
No debate.
right.
Yeah.
And that's. I mean, we even saw that with the whole Mike Gundy wearing the the OAN shirt, and all of the pundits are basically saying the same thing. Nobody's questioning anything. It's just like that was wrong, and that's just what it is. There is no room for okay, well maybe none of that. It was just he's wrong. Yeah. We're right on this, and let's just move forward with it. And that's how a lot of these guys think. They think they inherit the moral high ground. They think what it is, whatever it is, that they advocate is the right thing to advocate. They're smart enough to sort of mask it in these slogans, which make it hard to disagree with, like, oh, Black Lives Matter. Right. What are you saying? You don't like black people or something like that? Yeah. Very slick. But then when you kind of peel off the layers, right, or get down to the root of this, you're like, wait a minute, this isn't what it is that I don't think it's conducive for freedom. It's something I've been talking about for years about this organization, as far as, and I know it's a separation maybe from the organization versus people that just use it as a slogan, because they are kind of two different. They're intertwined, but they're kind of two different things. But either way, a lot of the pundits that would shout this from the mountaintops, they aren't at all concerned with really freedom.
Yeah.
Some of these are very revengeful people. They're like, hey, I want to take it to. It's not like it's like an overcompensation. We don't, we think white people or these types of people have done evil things to us. Now it's our turn to do evil things to them. It's how a lot of people are. Not saying everybody that is there, but these are the types of approach that these guys have. So you have to take that in consideration. Like you mentioned, knowing your enemy is very important. This is why I've always encouraged people to get them on. Like even when I'm talking to them, like, hey, email me. Let me come out. Boat Money Jones, hopefully you're watching this, from ESPN, said something very slick about libertarians that really rubbed me the wrong way. I'd love to come on your platform and have a discussion about this. But this is the type of things that we should have. I want to get them out there. And when they're in the echo chamber, they don't have to do that.
Exactly.
They don't have to do that when they're in the echo chamber, because, again, everybody just assumes that they're correct. It isn't until they get with someone that may refute what it is that they have to say, or at least are going to be somewhat critical to their positions, that they're actually going to have to take the mask completely off, and we'll get to the root. But you kind of have to force their hand on that.
And on a platform where you can't just have a shout out, a platform where you actually have to sit and be civil and dialogue. And now you got to back up everything you said. And I think what you find, it's kind of like college students at the moment that are just off the rails for socialism. You question them once or twice and it's surface level. Yeah. They can't back anything up. Just because.
Right.
Because
Trump's a bad guy. Well, why? What is he? I don't know. It's just because.
Everything.
Yeah, it's
all
everything.
the bad things.
Right. And so, you know. Yeah, and then we get a presidential running mate saying, the thing,
Right.
So everything is so surface level. This is healthy.
Absolutely.
Come on the networks. Talk.
Do you think, and I want to get both of your responses to this question, do you think that the Democrats, let's play this out to the end, if they do get what they want, I don't see them really actually wanting to eliminate racism, to burn the system down, to get rid of any and all instances, and for those of you listening on podcast, I did just do air quotes, of systemic racism, which I don't see any evidence exists, but they would tell you something different. I look at them and I see the way that they treated the police reform bill that the Republicans came up with. I see the way that they act, and I'm like, I actually don't think you want to change the system, because if you changed the system, you would no longer be able to call yourself a victim or say that you're oppressed. And then what would you have? Because it seems to me that that's their entire identity, is just, I'm oppressed, I'm a victim, this is how I live. How in the world would they be able to identify themselves if not for that? So I look at it and I don't think that they want change.
Yeah, no, and they certainly don't seem to want something like, again, that requires us to move towards the side of a freer, more prosperous society. Reason being is because it comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of self-accountability. And that's not anything that a lot of these folks, and that's not anything exclusive to black folk or anything like that.
Yeah.
I've debated I don't know how many white leftists on this particular subject, and they feel the same way, very envious towards people that do have. And it's like, okay, we see the state as a particular issue here and these sort of acts of aggression. Let's sort of scale back on this. Let's put the money back in the hands of people. Let's get rid of the regulations that get in the way of businesses being able to operate freely, you being able to operate freely. And then it's like, wait a minute, no, that's not what we want. That's not what it is that we want. It's like, wait a minute, well, I thought that's how we're going to get there. It's like, no, we don't want that. We want to do it this. We kind of want to still keep it like this, but we don't want it to whoop our tails in the way that they do.
Right.
It's all sort of really confusing. They really don't know what it is that they want. But most definitely, for what we know, what we can understand, what's identifiable to us working towards freedom, and that simply is putting the power back in the hands of the individuals. You talk about the police state, when you talk about government in general in terms of what they're able to control, that will require us to eliminate taxes, that will require us to eliminate regulations and so forth. That's not even on their agenda. That's not even on the table. When they talked about the defund, the police fraud, not one of them were like, we're going to put the money that would then fund this back into the hand of the individuals that we had been taking, or more so because the money's gone. More so, we're just going to stop taking it from them. That was never even on the table. So these guys aren't really about really solutions, not let's say conducive solutions, not anything that's going to actually work towards the way that we want to work towards when it comes to building a more freer society, because again, that's going to come with responsibility. Right now, they have a lot of dependency on the state. They can look to the state. It's an easy cop out in the event that they, let's say, are in an unfortunate situation. It's an easy thing to point to. When you remove that, and then it's like you have to look to yourself and those near you and hold them accountable. That's not anything they really want, which is why they are in such opposition to things like libertarianism, for example.
Look, I said it before, deja vu. I lived through this. I'm from South Africa, brother. I lived through this. This is round 7 for me. I've seen it work and not work. Yeah. In order to make real change with race relations, okay, you need self-awareness. You have to ask, that man has to ask himself, what has my contribution been? Right. Well, no. I don't have a contribution. No, you do. You do. Everybody has a contribution. And unless you're willing to say, what is my contribution, and am I willing to change my ways? Yaku, speaking for myself, and Eric, and Sarah, right? You go nowhere. The pendulum just swings in the other direction. You can look at South Africa today. It's a disaster. There was a man, Nelson Mandela, and I questioned a man, an American man, the Reverend Jesse Jackson one day. And I literally did this face to face. And I said, are you truly about eliminating racism? Or is it a necessary evil? Yeah. Right? Or are you willing to play with it and toy with it? Because Nelson was no, I want to end it. Right. I want to end it. I want equality, all voices to be heard. Called it the Rainbow Nation, etc. There's a big difference. When the heart really wants to say, listen, we root it out, that means all stakeholders at the table, everybody's accountable. Okay?
All good points made at the table here. We've got a lot more to get into, including the CHOP project is now concluded. That's a real bummer. We'll get into. I know. I'm so.
What will we talk about?
I don't know if you saw it, but I just shed a tear really quickly. It was just, but you probably didn't see it because it was so fast. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Bambee. So if you are an entrepreneur, a small business owner, you know how difficult HR issues can be. They can kill your company. You could have a wrongful termination suit. You have to keep up with all of those minimum wage requirements, the labor regulations. There's a ton to keep up with. And on top of that, paying your HR manager, the salaries are not cheap. It's an average of $70,000 a year. That is where Bambee, spelled B-A-M-B-E-E, comes in very handy for small business. They give you a dedicated HR manager. They can craft your HR policy. They will maintain your compliance. They remember all of those rules and regulations that you don't have time for, all for just $99 a month. Bambee will change your HR from your biggest liability to your biggest strength. You will have a dedicated HR manager that's available by phone, by email, real-time chat, however you prefer. They can do onboarding, terminations, customize your policies. And let me just tell you, with insurance these days, this is worth it just to be able to have someone else to manage your insurance compliance, because speaking as an insurance broker, that can kill your business if you get it wrong. I mean, if you have an employee that finds out and comes back to you later, you do not want to deal with that mess. I've seen it happen a million times. $99 a month is worth it. Let Bambee help. Get your free HR audit today. You can go to Bambee.com/matters to schedule that free HR audit. Yes, I said for free. That is BAMBEE.com/matters. We will be back in just a minute. All right, the Seattle Autonomous Zone has it's concluded. Its cute little project that it was working on. I feel like it's been way longer, but I guess it's only been about 2 weeks that they took over this downtown portion of Seattle. But after several nights of shootings and calls from the mayor to end the protest, they have mostly dissolved. Apparently, this morning's census found fewer than 24 clustered near the East Precinct, and they're done. They say that the CHOP project is now concluded, and I, for one, am shocked. I am shocked because I thought that they already had all this figured out. Did you see the garden, Eric? Did you see the garden? They planted so much.
Yeah, no.
They were just about to thrive.
It's 2-week communism project just failed. But no, seriously, they didn't think it through at all. That's more so what this comes to, is that they didn't actually think any of this through. It was like, and I think that's a lot of definitely these young sort of socialistic, communistic people.
Well, it's like what we were just talking about with Black Lives Matter.
Right, yeah.
They're like not thinking it through.
Yeah, they don't actually possess the capacity to just be like, okay, if we're going to do this, it entails this, 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 and this. And that's the sort of benefit of having, I guess, coming up in a system like somewhat that we have here, is that it sort of masks the struggle that they would have had, let's say, people weren't funneling in like goods and services basically into this sort of project, which they were entirely dependent upon. But yeah, they didn't think it through. They were still trying to change the name, still trying to benefit off of, you had the shootings and whatnot. They're like, you couldn't get the guys, the EMTs to go in because of, they weren't sure that the area was clear and so forth. It was a lot of craziness, but that's, I feel like, a representation of what I see these young socialists. They don't really think it through. They think in theory, but when it comes down to the nitty gritty, and this is why, for example, guys like myself are so into markets, because we recognize that we don't have it all figured out, right? We absolutely don't. But it's part of recognizing that, and why we think freer markets are essentially better. And not demonizing money or not focusing on this communal nonsense. It's because we know that there are people that have their specialties. We know that there are individuals that have their specialties, and we want those creative minds to come up with these sort of ideas that people in the geographical area benefit. I don't know how to make these cool little coffee mugs, but I get to have a cool little coffee mug on this day. Just a prime example of that. But we knew this was the inevitable thing. I think it's kind of funny to see the mayor kind of change on this, like, oh, well, it's just everything's fine.
It wasn't a block party.
All it took was a couple of people getting shot, and now it's like the Power Rangers there, they weren't enough, and it's like, oh well, I think y'all should maybe chill out with what's going on, and then it slowly, but surely dissolved. They were always doomed for failure because they didn't have the like sort of ideological, philosophical backing that results in something that would be a success if you are to basically have an area and succeed, which is sort of what they kind of did, but that wasn't really what they did. They didn't really think it all the way through. But like I said, that's a representation of communism and socialism.
Yeah, it's a whole different, fiction and reality, right? Playing PlayStation and actually going in and actually doing it. It actually requires leadership. Yep. It actually requires law and order. And this wasn't even a real project. This was a kind of one-legged project, but they were still getting power from the city and water from the city and food from other people. But I want to know, where's all these uber liberal, know-it-all professors? Are they gonna write a white paper on this experiment? I'd love to see the white paper on this experiment.
Don't call it a white paper, please.
No, that's what you call it. A black paper?
That's offensive.
A pink paper? But are they gonna write a real report with some metadata? And then, where was Bernie and his crew? Why didn't they come save CHOP? Where was Bernie's people should have rolled in and said, no, we know how to do socialism. We know how to do communism. Nowhere to be found because it's all talk and no action. It
will be interesting to see, not just the president, but I think Republican leaders. I know anytime I probably say Republican, Eric's like, oh, Republicans. But any sort of conservative or libertarian leaders, if they can effectively present the messaging that that's exactly what this is. Yes. This was failed socialism. It is important, and I haven't heard them come out and say that.
That would be a missed opportunity.
I think so.
That's perfectly put, and they have to do that.
Yeah.
They have to do that. Like, you'd be missing a prime opportunity to point it out, like, this is why it didn't work. And maybe even from an educational standpoint, I would love for Rand Paul to say, well, not only this is not why it worked, this is sort of why, why exactly, this was an utter failure from the exact get-go. They have a prime opportunity here, but this has been my criticism of a lot of them. They're always on the defense and never getting on the attack.
I'm sorry people got hurt, of course, always, right? But it's actually, I want to thank them. Thank you for the beautiful case study to make our point.
Yeah.
Why free markets and capitalism is what we need. Thank you for the case study, but we will miss you make probably the best point here is we have to make this clear in a very comprehensive way and saying no politics, just reality.
Absolutely.
This is why.
Yeah, certainly stepping back and letting them implode by themselves is not enough.
That's why it was so important that Trump didn't get involved. Like, it was inevitable from the get-go that was going to fail. Don't get in their way. Don't get in there. Now, so many people were calling for him. You got to come in. It's like, don't get in their way. Like, let them fail.
Yep. Speaking of President Trump, he scored a big win today with the Supreme Court, finally ruling on deportation powers. They ruled in a 7-2 decision that the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act does not violate the suspension clause of the Constitution. What this means is that the Trump administration has the power to deport people seeking asylum without a, quote, credible fear of persecution, right? Obviously, the reason people are supposed to come here seeking asylum, the main reason that they can give to, quote, seek asylum is credible fear of persecution. And there was a case that the Ninth Circuit, of course, the Ninth Circuit, it's always the Ninth Circuit, said that they violated the Constitution because the deportation officer determined that this person needed expedited removal from the country because he did not fit the criteria of a credible fear of persecution. So, turns out when you come up and you're like, yeah, one time these people were after me and they really didn't like me and I'm pretty scared about it 10 years later and I really feel like I just need to come into the country. Denying them is not in violation of the Constitution. I'm great with it, Eric. I've always wondered where you stood on issues like this as a libertarian.
Yeah. No, my thing about liberty, and it's funny that you mentioned asylum and, it's sort of refugees and stuff like that. Like, my issue from a libertarian perspective, and I know I don't want to say it's a hot debate because you have those libertarians that are more minarchists libertarians. So some of them actually cling to the Constitution, and they obviously believe in national borders and so forth. And then you get the other side of the libertarian spectrum, which is like, okay, borders are acts of aggression and so forth. My issue when it's always come to something like that, it's less about do they have the right to get over here or anything like that. What I feel like we always often miss is how the state gets in the way, and sort of when you have things like these sort of refugee programs in which you are funding that, right? We're all funding their refugee program. So it's not just a matter of, well, you get to decide if you wanted to sponsor something. This is what I've always encouraged these blue check marks who are like, oh, all the immigrant people are just trying to get here. I was like, okay, reach in your pocket, and you can bring them over here, pay for everything top to bottom, and you house them. You house them. And also that would mean that any event that they do something silly, that's on you.
It's actually called sponsorship.
Bingo.
I've helped 15 families immigrate. Now immigrate. It's actually called sponsorship.
Bingo.
Right? If you come, even corporations become sponsors. If Toyota today hires a guy from Japan and he comes on an O1 visa, which is extraordinary ability, they sponsor that guy, which means the government can call Toyota Monday to Sunday and say, hey, where's Johnny? What's he doing? And you're held accountable. So come on, George Clooney, all the refugees. Are you sponsoring a couple O1s, you know?
Yeah.
Brilliant point.
Exactly. And I think if that was the approach, no matter where you at, we're on the side of immigration, I think that would be what's happening is that effectively everybody's funding this. So especially if you are a guy like that, this is not anything that I would want my tax dollars to go to. You're going to feel some kind of way about it. Yeah. So that's what I've always been like approaching, like, okay, what is the state doing? Why are they getting it? Why do we have these sort of resettlement programs and so forth, where the state is literally taking money from everybody else and then using that to bring people. That's effectively what it is. I think a lot of people have issues with when you have people seeking asylum. I think less people would have issues with it. Even people that are like kind of on the fence when it comes to immigration, they would have less issue with it if it was a case of those blue check marks and everybody that's like, oh, let everybody in. If you actually had to be the one to make that happen, if you had to reach in your pockets to make that happen, and again, it would be then your responsibility if something happened, that person you brought in killed someone or even whatever it was, that would be something that you could absolutely fund and you can house them and you can do stuff of that nature. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily what we have when we consider some of these different programs that exist.
Yeah.
It's interesting you make that point because it's kind of like foster care and adoption right now that works. Sarah, I like what's happening here. It's not unconstitutional because if people know how immigration works, there are quotas. There are quotas, right? And so now when you have a real person from South Sudan who's being killed purely because they're Christian, right, in a religious war, that's a refugee. Fleeing for that. A guy that's living in Mexico, no offense, because it's close, I'm just saying, who just go, hey, economically I'm struggling. That's not, you don't
there
get
are a lot of
asylum
third world
for that.
countries that they could make the point.
Sorry, but you don't get asylum for that. Vote different government into your country so they don't plunder and steal from the people. Again, Africa, right? So I'm not surprised by it. It's just like, well, it's obvious. It doesn't violate the Constitution. Right? Yes, there's reform needed. I'm with you, but I stand with you. There's too many talkers and not enough takers.
Yeah.
You want to talk about this? Then come, put up or shut up. Come on, blue check mark. Come on, you're gonna step up and house some people in the empty house you got, and
the 3 or 4 that Bernie has. He can house a couple of them, but that's never on the table. That's never on the table. They never even talk about it.
You have to tell us what to do. You're doing it.
Yeah. All right, we've got a lot more coming up, including I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about what is going on in Texas with the COVID spikes and the new mask mandates in some counties. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Omega XL. So, some of you who may not know this, I got in a car accident in 2013, I believe it was, messed up a bunch of discs in my back, and they wanted to give me injections in my spine. And I was like, first of all, not a big fan of needles. Second of all, don't want to go under and do that. But tell me, is it going to get rid of my pain for good? And they said, well, no, it's just a temporary solution. It's just kind of to mask it. And I'm like, I have to keep going back and doing this? No, I don't want to do that. I use Omega XL now, and it has worked wonders for me instead, because it actually addresses the root cause of the pain, which is inflammation. All right, you've got to defeat the inflammation to defeat the pain, or it can even cause permanent damage, like in my case. So Omega XL is backed by 35 years of clinical research, and it attacks the inflammation that is causing your pain. You don't realize it when you're putting on the pain relievers. You put on maybe a cream or a lotion and you say, oh my gosh, this works. Well, it might work for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but then you have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it because it's not solving the problem. All right. It is, I love this on their bottle. It is a powerful, essential fatty acid combination from the pristine waters of New Zealand. The capsules, if you don't like swallowing giant, I'm not going to take a horse pill. You don't have to do that with Omega XL. It's a tiny little pill. It's super duper concentrated, and it will work wonders, get you out of pain. Because I know what it's like if you're just living in constant pain. It's just, it affects every facet of your life. You don't have to live like that. Try Omega XL right now. You will get a second bottle for free when you order a bottle. Go to omegaxl.com/news. That is omegaxl.com/news. Back in a minute. Governor Greg Abbott here in Texas said today that the state will pause its efforts to reopen the economy as the number of confirmed coronavirus infections spikes and hospitals begin to fill. Abbott said that businesses are already allowed to operate under the current reopening phase and will continue to be able to do so. What are we in now? Phase 2, phase 3? We were rocking and rolling. We were getting going. We were up to 50% capacities in businesses. And now we are slowed to a halt. And it's not just that. Tarrant County, Dallas County, and I would love to get your thoughts on how Governor Abbott has handled this particular issue. He said he would not issue a mask mandate, but he also kind of left the door open for counties to create their own mask mandates. And he said, well, you could have the county say that private businesses have to mandate that people wear masks in their businesses, and that's how you kind of get around the tightrope here. So far, Dallas County, Tarrant County have both come out and proceeded to give a mask mandate. Tarrant counties said face coverings will be required in all businesses, and the order will be in effect through 6 a.m. August 3rd. August. Yes, I said August 3rd. It also applies to outdoor gatherings of 100 people or more. And the Dallas County order is very similar, and it is through August 4th. I mean, unless extended or maybe terminated early, but probably not, because we know once you give them power, they don't take it back. Eric, I'm really sorry that we're talking about this again, but here it is. And apparently coronavirus it's a thing again.
We had a pause when all the protests things happened. And then we had a couple of studies that said, well, in those areas where the protests happen, that doesn't have anything to do with the spike.
Right.
Unless you know how.
Oh, and also contact tracers. Well, don't ask them if they went to the protest.
So how would you know? But yeah, it certainly goes to show how this game is rigged. I have to use this opportunity to blast a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservative colleagues that I even have, because this is why you don't be flaky on issues like this, and you have to put your foot down and say this is tyrannical. Let's call it exactly what it is. Unfortunately, what I'm hearing is a lot of rhetoric when I heard the whole bump stock ban thing. Well, why would you do that? Or it's just a bump stock, right? That's the same thing. It's just a mask.
It's just a mask.
It's just a mask. We live in hot Texas, and the thing that I want to be doing when I'm walking around is having something covering my face. I've said this time and time again. If you want to wear a mask, go for it. I have not advocated that the government or the state be used to force people to not wear a mask. Obviously, not force businesses to not have that policy. If a business, private business, doesn't mean I would necessarily want to shop there, but if a private business, they want to say, we require masks if you're going to shop here, that's their right. Yeah. Whatever. What's happening is, though, we have these sort of officials that have taken it upon themselves to say, you know what, if you shop anywhere, You go anywhere. Doesn't matter what the business owner believes. You have to wear something that is covering your face. And this is a lot of Republicans that left the door open, and they're still, because a lot of them, to be fair, maybe a lot of conservatives, not just necessarily people that are in office, they think that this is a good thing because they think you should wear a mask. Unfortunately, with all that small government talk, seems to go right out the window when it's something that they feel people should do. Yeah. And they legislate other people's more. All this is, look, if you want to wear a mask, go ahead, right? But I'm not assuming a risk for you. You shouldn't assume the risk for me. And they say, well, you're helping and you're saving others, right? By not wearing them. You don't have a right to get other people sick. It's like, first of all, believe it or not, COVID-19 was not the first virus that you could get and you could pass on to other people.
What?
It wasn't the first one, believe it or not.
Diseases?
There have been contagious, if you get the wrong, like whether it be bacterial, a virus, viral pneumonia, for example. There's no cure for that, by the way, for viral pneumonia, that is. It's only when it's, associated with influenza. But nonetheless, you could get sick. That's not a new thing. It's just something that human beings have been dealing with forever. It is not a new thing. But that's the sort of nonsensical logic that they use and say, well, you don't have the right to get other people sick, so you have to wear a mask. It's like, what, did viruses just come up last week? Why weren't we wearing every flu season wearing masks and doing things like that? You didn't say that. They have no desire to be consistent on this. But Abbott and others have left the door open for a lot of these sorts of laws to exist. And because there are people that believe that, well, this is something they should do, they think that they should force everybody else to do it. Yeah. And that is the core issue. I don't care where you are on the political spectrum. That is wrong. That is wrong. I'm not personally a fan of masks, but even if I was a fan of wearing masks or what have you, that still would be wrong. You don't have a right to do that. And I don't care how they try to mask it and, oh, well, you're getting other people sick. I'm not trying to hear that. You have no absolute right to do that.
Well, and so Eric makes great points, and I completely agree with you. But on top of that, I haven't seen the studies, the legitimate studies that show that the masks are working. And in addition to that, you see LA, which is now a hot spot. They've had some of the strictest mask requirements in the country. It didn't seem to help them. So explain to me, local officials, how you could come to the logical conclusion that it's what we need to do here.
When something's so stupid, stupid, then you got to make light of it, right? Yeah. We better start wearing bandanas over our eyes because you can contract this thing through your eyes.
Oh, man, that's true.
For crying out loud, okay? And just a couple of weeks ago, they go, well, you're only wearing the mask to make people feel good, right? CDC.
That's true.
CDC.
Didn't Fauci say that?
Fauci came out. The great Pumbaa Gura came out, right? And, it's just to make people feel good, right? Now, Clay Jenkins. Yeah. Governor Abbott, I love Abbott.
I do too.
On the fight, he's helped us, but this is a faux pas.
Yeah.
Step up, have the kahunas, and say this is Texas for crying out loud. Let not Georgia beat us on something again when they open up before us. This is Texas. There's pride in this state. We're actually doing things right here. There's individuality in this state. It's nonsense. Think about this. Last week, we had more nurses and doctors come out last week and say, hey, coronavirus, big overstatement and overplay. All of a sudden, riots are over. We got to get back on the political train here. Drive Corona a little further. We got to jump on the Corona bandwagon again. Listen, there will be Corona season every year like flu season, okay? I had a friend contract coronavirus, 60-something years old, 7 days ago. They tested him, he has corona. Wouldn't admit him to the hospital. He was in Georgia. Wouldn't give him hydroxychloroquine, right? Unless he went to the hospital. He was tested 2 days ago, negative. Okay? Don't come with this crap to me, all right? It's a virus like flu. Keep your body healthy, up your immune system, and go on with life. Abbott, come on, dude, you're better than this. Step up.
All right, back in a minute.
Hope you don't mind.
No.
I like that when I look at the survival rate.
I know. NASCAR has released a photo of the so-called Noose that they claimed they found in Bubba Wallace's garage stall. Those of you who are watching on video or on BlazeTV, here it is. Now, I have some questions, though, because it's interesting that they cut the picture off where they did, because you can't see where it's connected to the garage door. That would be kind of key for me in determining how credible these shrieks were of, oh my God, it's a noose in a black man's garage. Sorry for everyone's eardrums. Eric, what are your quick thoughts on this whole saga?
More so, it seems to be just a bunch of dramatization. Like it seems like somebody tried to tie it up and so it could be actually pulled.
That's why I want to see the top of the picture.
Yeah, that's what it looks like,
at least from what I
see it. But I think we have to talk about briefly how quick people were able to just to jump on this.
Yes.
Definitely all these pundits like, see, those redneck NASCAR folks. See, this is what happens when we have this guy
racism.
That is black. Which is he mixed? Do we know?
Mixed,
all right, so he's just as much white as he is. All right. So he's just as much white as he is black. Well, yeah, he's one of those Obama. Yes, first half black president. First black president, Bill Clinton, by the way. Nonetheless. But no, we sit here and everybody jumped on this so fast. Didn't matter if it was true or not. It just validated their bias. And unfortunately, people jumped on it. And I just want to point to that because it highlights how people obsess with racism and they look to find it no matter where it is. And that is not healthy.
Yeah.
Hey, if you got a shovel, buddy, you can find something. If you dig far enough, you can find something. How fast did they jump on the Jesse Smollett case? I mean, everybody was, and then eat your words. Here we go again. When will they learn? Or just let them burn. And November is going to be a month for us. Just let them burn. I can't help them if they can't help themselves. Proof and verify.
Yeah.
Just proof and verify. And if it was truly, you would have known. Now it's coming out. It's been there since
2019.
At least.
Good night.
At least.
Come on. And I want to know, does that noose actually slip? Was it tied in a way where it can slip? Because otherwise, it's not really a noose, right? It's just a handle.
I just want to see. I just find it peculiar that they cut off the picture where they did.
It's a nice dramatic photo, though.
It is. Well, it is,
Very
and that's why there was someone who tweeted it out to several of us and was just like, "Will you have the integrity to apologize for what you said?" No, for what? Show me the entire thing, right? And show me the entire thing, okay? Because all I'm making fun of is the fact that all of these people, like Eric said, they jumped onto it. They latched on this knee-jerk reactionary rage mob who wanted to tell everyone else that they were, what was Bubba Wallace's quote, that everyone was simple-minded for doubting it. And then it came out that it was false. So I'll wait for your apology. Okay, I'll wait for your apology. We'll be back in just a minute.
Yeah, what about the white racers last year that was in the same garage?
I know. Who wanted to kill him? All right, yesterday's poll question, is NASCAR's Bubba Wallace the next Jussie Smollett, or was this all just a big mix-up, a big misunderstanding? 78% of you almost said that he is now known forever as Bubba Smollett. 22% of you said it's just a misunderstanding. We were going back and forth at the table. Really quickly, I want to get your thoughts yesterday between whether or not he truly was trying to do this knowing that it was fake, or if he just kind of got swept up in the attention from it and eventually was like, okay, I don't know if it's true or not, but I like all this fame I'm getting.
Maybe a little bit of both, because I don't think it was him that obviously reported
Right, it was NASCAR.
But he certainly ran with it.
Exactly.
So regardless, he could have been easily well, we don't actually know what's going on. Let's look into it a little more. That's not what he neglected to do. And like you mentioned, he did double down on it. So, I mean.
Yeah, he doubled down on it. He called everyone who doubted him simple-minded, and then he doubled down on it on John Lennon.
He had the opportunity to set an example and say, listen, if this is that, it's not good, but I'm going to wait for the facts to come in. He missed a huge opportunity. He ran with it. So.
Yeah. All right, today's poll, do you trust the polls reporting that Joe Biden is beating President Trump in key battleground states? There are a lot of them out there. A lot of those polls out there. Do you trust them? Very quickly, yes or no?
Nah, not at this. Not. What is today? What's it, June? July?
Yeah, it's June 25th.
Yeah, so it's June. So nah.
What do you think, Jaco?
I don't trust U.S. polls ever. None of them.
I mean, they weren't right in 2016, so I think that's a pretty good indication there. All right, let us know what you think. You can go to the Blaze's Twitter. That is @TheBlaze. Gentlemen, thank you for being here.
Thank you, ma'am.